This week's talking point. So, with fishing tackle being so expensive these days, do you think that's a factor in less and less people getting into match fishing?
I think it definitely plays a part. Not just tackle as such, it's just the bait, the general cost of fishing. It's like when you actually break it down, you go and fish matches, open matches, you're probably looking at least 50 to £100 every match, including your travelling, your bait, your pools. And, we want youngsters to get into fishing. I know you've got your club matches and stuff, but to advance into like the open scene, I think it's hard for youngsters to get into it. And they haven't got, some people are not lucky enough to have parents that can buy all their fishing tackle. And if you break something, I think we take it for granted a little bit. If we break a section, we can just ring up and say, I've had an accident, and it's sorted. But for someone to say on a windy day, for example, someone breaks 3 sections of their pole, that's it. They won't be able to.
Yeah,
they probably wouldn't afford to.
How many sections must have got broke at this weekend just gone with 50-mile-an-hour winds? There must have been thousands of sections across the country. It's went especially onto your bigger sections where you're 300, 400, 500 quid in some of this.
And we're in the fortunate position. I was sort of I'll use my power pole.
Yeah.
It's how
everyone...
fortunate's that I've got a power pole that I can call on. So that's my second pole. So if that one broke, then I've got my other one.
Yeah.
No one's, in reality, not many people are in that position where they can call on a
and I think it does have an effect, like you say, to go and you don't have to have the best gear to be able to compete. No. I know a lot of anglers that you look at their gear and you think, oh my god, but they get results every weekend. Do you know what I mean? But I think to just start, I think it definitely does affect it, and you're not going to see as many people coming through, because I think a lot of it, what social media's like these days, and the big people that people look up to, they want to be like them, and I think they get put off because then they maybe might never be able to afford to be like.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. You look at all these big name anglers, they've all got the top of the range pole because they can get it. Like you say there, I don't think you need that to be definitely having to compete. You look at sort of hotspots, Partridge Lakes, where really you definitely never need to get anything more than sort of 14.5 metres out, but a lot of the time you don't need more than sort of 13 metres of pole out of the bag. So you don't need the top of the range pole, because it's only when you start going into the 16 metre sort of regions where a top of the range pole makes any difference.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, I had the MAP 801, and for all my World Championship work, I used the MAP cart pole for everything. I'm fishing World Championship with a cart pole because I know that, fishing at 11.5 metres, apart from I've got the 1001 now, you can tell a massive difference. But you're not going to, at 11.5 metres, it doesn't matter what pole you've got.
No, to be fair, I was out testing 2 days ago now, Monday. I was out with the MAP C1 and C2. And like you say, brilliant poles. They're not a 16 metre pole, but for that money, that you're never going to break them. But they offer good value for money for what they are.
That's the important thing as well. There's almost that mentality that the more you spend, people almost expect them to be indestructible. Yeah. Where you kind of going the other way, where if you spend $3,000 on a pole, you're going to have to look after a bit, and coming into it, that's where your cheaper 500-600 quid poles at up to 13 metres, there's not going to be a massive amount of difference. They're going to be well fishable. Yeah. You'll be able to get top kits, and I think most companies seem to be going down the route now of almost future-proofing them so that your top kits you get for your cheaper poles will be interchangeable. Yeah. So obviously you can go along with it, but I don't know. Although it probably doesn't get the publicity it deserves, there is so much good cheap tackle out there now. Yeah. When you look at this, if you spend 30-40 quid on a rod now, compare that to even when I started fishing, would have been 10-15 years ago, the quality is ridiculous, and like
Yeah.
30 quid, like some of them cheap diver reels, and is it little ninjas at like
absolutely
what are they,
amazing.
40 quid or
40
something?
quid, but they're
Like,
brilliant for commercial fishing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need anything else.
it's a lot of it is there's not a lot. Obviously, poles fishing at 16 meters is one that affects your fishing, but a lot of it isn't. It's a nice to have rather than affecting your fishing.
Do you think that the whole rise of social media, you take your picture of your tackle behind your peg, everyone can see what you've got. If you sat on a lesser seat box or a lesser pole, you've got a lesser pole on the rollers behind you, or do you think that's it's like a more of a what people see rather than what actually you need?
It's not just fishing, is it? That's the same in anything you go. If you like went to play golf or whatever, I think it's more in your own head than
it's more psychological. I think, and as the world's going these days, everything's social media. You know, you're getting a lot. You're seeing a lot more of pop-up anglers. Do you know what I mean? Like they can be interested in fishing, go on YouTube, and they can learn to fish from YouTube.
Yeah.
But you know, they're seeing those anglers with that stuff. Are they thinking, I need that stuff to be as good as them?
Yeah.
It's not. That's not the case. You need to be able to have fish. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what pole you're using. If you present right, using the right rigs and things like that, you're going to have the same results.
I think that's just a hobby sort of thing in general, though, isn't it? It's not just limited to fishing.
No.
Where like anything you go into, there's always going to be the people that've got all the gear and haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
There's always going to be like that old boy who's got the shittest, oldest gear that bashes everyone up, be it whatever sport they're doing.
Definitely.
And it's like, you always see the same sort of thing. And I think there is a lot of people that do kind of disprove the theory as much as they do prove it. But yeah, I suppose it is a hard one where, as the top anglers that you are seeing all the time, they are going to be using the top end gear, because why wouldn't you? But is it? I don't know. It's, to me, almost match fishing isn't the entry level of fishing. And when you look at how cheap it is to not to go match fishing, but just to go fishing now, you could 20 quid. You can get on the bank and get catching fish.
Well,
I think
you always used to get in tackle shops, didn't you? Like the old whip rig, disgorge a little set with a plummet and a bait tub with a pint of maggots in, and you've got everything there that you need to go. And like you say, you can do that within 20 quid. I wouldn't put it past people like Bennett to bash me up off the next peg with something like that, because still, at the end of the day, feeding and presentation is still the most important aspect of fishing. Obviously, in terms of how efficient you are with lesser tackles, probably where the difference starts coming into it.
Yeah, I think you look at getting into match fishing. I think obviously on the open side of things, because everyone is using it, you do need, like, there is a level of gear you kind of need to compete effectively. Obviously, it's not saying you couldn't do it with cheap gear, but on club matches and stuff, I think there's as long as you've got a pole that you can fish at 30 metres,
or even just a rod,
and a little method rod, you can compete on a lot of them, and I think that's the thing. So if people are kind of watching this thinking of getting into match fishing, it's like, don't let it bother you. I don't think no one's ever going to go to a match that you're like, I've just getting into match fishing. No one's going to start judging people for the gear they use or anything like that. If anything, you're going to get judged if you've got like 10 grand of kit sat on the bank and you don't know what you're doing. That's where you start looking
that
at
way of things as well. If you are getting on the bank, it shouldn't put you off, because I think if you do go up to people are going to help you. Like, fishermen are quite nice people actually, and they want to see people fishing. Do you know what I mean? It's, and I think I've done it in the past. If I've had a kid come up to me or whatever, I'll give him some bits. Do you know what I mean? Because I just think, it's embarrassing actually when I clear out my garage and see how much gear I've got. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, how does one person need? I'm fortunate, don't get me wrong, and I'm so grateful, but that's when, I give a neighbour down the road a little rod and reel the other day because he wants to go fishing. I was like, I'll give you a rod and reel, it's fine. He was like, what, you're going to give it to me? Yeah, like, go fishing. Like, that's what I want to see. I don't want you don't see it anymore. Teenagers just in their room playing games or on their phones. And You need more people on the bank. So I don't like the idea that it would put people off, but I do think because of some people's expectation, it probably does. People don't want to look like the one with no not the best gear, do they? You know.
That's basically that's it, isn't it? I think there is that thing on social media, how you look rather than what you actually need. I just don't think that. I think that there are obviously money comes into it, doesn't it? If you've got the disposable money to disposable cash to get the better gear, then you do it. That's with anything. If you're into cars, if you've got more money, you buy a nicer car.
Yeah.
It's if your hobby is fishing, not cars, and you buy the better poles and the better tackle, don't you?
Yeah. There's no like most hobbies that if you get into that. Like fishing open matches is effectively quite a high level in fishing. Yeah. And there's not many other sports or anything that if you're at that sort of level, you're going to be spending some money on gear. I think that obviously there's like running and stuff, you can argue that there's a lot less gear to buy. But if you're that committed to be at that sort of level,
really nice trainers, don't you?
You end up spending money on
you know,
it.
some of the money they pay for bikes, you just think what? But then you look at you spend what you'd spend on a pole, and it's the same difference, like you said, no matter what sport you do.
Yeah, and you also, when you look at it compared to, you mentioned sort of say 15 years ago, what you can now buy for 500 quid now compared to what you used to be able to buy for 500 quid then.
Yeah.
It worlds apart.
Yeah.
Like a 500 quid pole now is absolutely fantastic a lot of the time. Like you say, just maybe at some shorter distances, but
I reckon
that's where picking and choosing your venues where you don't necessarily need to fish as long, and you definitely can compete with that gear.
Yeah, if you gave someone like Jamie or Andy Bennett, something like that, gave them a 500 quid budget, they could go out and win matches.
Yeah.
Easily,
Definitely.
I think that's the thing, and even if it was altering your fishing slightly to you might fish a method a bit more if it's a white, like 16 metres, but you can still go out, you can compete and grow it as you go along as well. And there's going to be so much decent cheap gear that I don't think it's something to let it put you off unless you are one of these people who is desperate to have the top end stuff. Then it's going to be expensive. It's like but it shouldn't let people put him off.
No. So basically just work to your budget, and you can definitely get very good tackle for very little. Like you say, it definitely shouldn't put people off if the only thing that's putting them off is not being able to get the best gear on the bank, because there's so much that you can get that isn't going to break the bank.
Yeah, and if you're at the point where it's like, I either buy a £1,000 pole or don't feed the kids, then just feed your kids. Just don't go fishing. It's like, set your priorities right.
I don't know.
He was looking a bit hungry.